All right, so
we have the most important things on there, I think.
I believe you guys. I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to hear it. So, whenever you guys are ready to start sharing where you are at, feel free to take it away.
We're the Care Crusaders. We have a name now.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a really interesting way to start. I don't really know why it's the first slide, but one of the main things that we researched as far as thinking about what we could do for a solution is the effects of personalization. So we know that one of the most effective ways to deliver information in an understandable and considerate manner is via personalization, which means targeting the information provided to a specific interest or an aspect of the user's identity. So how can we utilize personalization when we are thinking of a solution? So first, we thought about inquiring about users' interests to make statistical comparisons. That is to say, like if we're saying you have a 70% chance likelihood, 5-year time, whatever, we can compare that to things that they're interested in by letting them select their interests.
So like, if they're into sports, you can be like, it's like the Guardians having a 70% chance of making it to 5.
Right, just to try to make it more hopeful and less
more
30% chance of dying. Yeah. And then we could also ask in which state users are being treated, so we can personalize the actual data that we're giving them to via their state, just so that it's more personalized and more accurate. And we also, if it's possible, we want to consider individual types of cancer as opposed to having one broad, writing thing about all types of cancer, because it's kind of a hard thing to quantify. Like the survival rate for all cancer in 5 years, it's kind of more difficult than being able to be like, okay, what type of cancer do you have? Select that prior, and we can perform it.
What type of cancer, at what stage were you diagnosed, that type of thing.
Yeah. So this is a map. It comes from a source that's much longer and has a lot more information, but it's essentially breaking down the state rates of specific types of cancer. This map isn't super helpful, but it's just a visual representation of that source, basically, which provided the breakdowns for different types of cancer and also for via the state. So that's something that we could utilize if we're thinking of making a solution based on that level of personalization.
Yeah. Another way that we were not that?
I said my bad.
Oh, my bad. Another way that we could do personalization is through financial situations. So you can go to the next slide. I was basically looking into what resources the Cleveland Clinic had specifically, because it would be really hard to go to every individual hospital in the nation and look at what financial resources they had. But they have a pretty good patient financial services team, and you can get financial advocates if you believe that your rates are non-affordable and that they're not good for you individually. And most of the assistance is provided through negotiations with Medicaid, but if you're an individual self-pay, then you have an automatic 30% off of whatever you have to make it more affordable.
Interesting.
And then if you guys want to talk about anything, you did.
Oh, yeah. I didn't have a specific slide, but it kind of goes along with, I think it was the second slide, technically the first one, where I did some research about the way people, the wording that people use. I kind of did extended research from one of the articles that we found. So I went into deeper research about how the wording of doctors can really affect how patients think. I saw a lot of patients didn't like the fact that people would use battle language, if that makes sense. And I noticed that it's used in a lot of things ads and stuff like that. And people saw that ads get a lot of good responses with that, so they kind of applied it to how to talk to cancer patients. But it has more of a negative effect, and people just assume that it has a positive effect. It's you're a survivor, you're gonna do great. But
you're in a fight.
Right, they don't like the fact that it feels like they're in a fight. They don't like the comparison. So another thing that I was looking into was how we can apply that to our survival rates, no matter how we do it, making sure that our wording is good for the people that are actually gonna receive it.
What are other comparisons that we can do other than battle?
That's how the analogies kind of came up, because we're trying to find more, I guess, what's a word?
Suitable?
Yeah, more suitable ways to
Yeah, and again, that could be related to the things that they're interested in, or just their personalities, based on their state even. Just so that we are targeting our user in a way that's actually genuine and not just this probably applies to everyone.
I'm curious, what do you guys think is unique about cancer that makes it feel complicated to have that kind of battling?
Well, I mean, because your body is literally fighting against you.
Also, a lot of people,
Right.
like from what I saw, a lot of people didn't like being like labeled as a survivor from the start because they tend to like, I think, was it National Cancer? I forgot what the I said.
The National Cancer Society?
Something like that.
Institute.
I think it might have been
something.
Institute.
Yeah.
They like label all of the cancer patients as survivors from the moment that they get diagnosed, which a lot of people don't really like because one, they don't know that, and two, it's like it kind of gives more anxiety, kind of.
Yeah, because it's like I just got diagnosed from cancer, now they're calling me a survivor.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like,
It's a big shift in identity.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you need to approach it with, like, some form of tact that isn't, like, if someone needs realism in that situation where it's like, give me what is actually happening, don't just tell me I'm going to make it because you don't know that. Like, the second I walk through this door, you don't know whether I'm gonna live or die in a few months.
And a lot of people just kind of assume that it works because it worked for a couple of people and they use it for everyone. And it's turning out that a lot of people don't really find it effective, and actually it does the opposite of calming them down.
And it's especially hard because we're telling them the statistic, like we're telling them how likely are you, essentially how likely are you to survive, which we know you're going to do. And we have to do that in a way that's like easy to digest and not like, you know.
You have to, like, make it simple, but also not talking down to the person. Was something that we found also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other last things you guys want to share? All of you have any unique things you want to pipe in with?
Me and Ava did a lot of like similar stuff. So I was looking at like survival statistics over years, and it's really hard to find like concrete data because everybody's so different. Like, it depends on your age, it depends on where you live, it depends on like circumstances in your house, outside your house, like everything is a factor in it. And so like I also came across the state by state thing, and it was a lot more helpful because you can actually see like for this state like what's the survival rates, and because it was really different for each state, and so that was cool to see.
That's why the personalization is so important.
Yeah.
Because it's a very complex disease with a lot of different factors.
Well, and what is specifically complex about this clinic in particular?
Well, they focus like in sarcoma, like our challenge partners focus in sarcoma, which is like always unique cases because it can be anywhere in your body pretty much.
Yeah, also what we were into is this source had a lot of really good information, but none of the breakdown was specifically about sarcoma, which is what they're trying to focus on. And I know that they said it could be applicable to all types of cancer, but we would want, in theory, to also
At least some sarcoma data that we can work with.
Yeah.
It's a very rare disease, so it's like hard to find stuff, but I'm sure if we dig a bit deeper on PubMed, we can find like some graphs about survival statistics.
Yeah, I'm curious to you guys, so I would suggest somebody be in the note-taking space, because I would just start kind of like asking and reflecting and thinking about that with you guys for a moment. Are you imagining, who's going to take notes? Sorry.
I can do it.
Thank you.
I should find the folder.
Are you imagining that you are going to create a tool that presents information to these patients, or are you imagining that you are going to create a tool that teaches these patients how to navigate information? I'm curious.
I mean, I think we're pretty much on the same page that we want to make something that presents information in a way that is different than all that exists already, and we can personalize it to their interests or where they live or types of cancer.
What type of thing are you kind of imagining right
Like
now?
a website, which I know isn't always like the most, innovative, like good. But I think in this case, it's going to be something that if we do well, could be really good like prototype solution.
Interesting. So you're imagining building, would you want to have an actual website by the time that you have your final
That would be nice.
Like a prototype of what we would want. I mean, it would have like, probably not like, if ideally we have like a very elaborate kind of system where it's like, put in your interest, put in where you live, put in this, and we'll give you a written thing about that relates all that. But we might have like a drive of like, pick from these 2 interests, pick from these 3 states, and then we'll.
Or we could do like videos, so it's a bit more personal.
Yeah, but that's a lot.
That is a lot, but you know, I've been feeling pretty crazy these past few days.
I mean, if it's a recorded video, that is easier, but it also is less like, I don't know, it would feel less professional.
Is there a way for you guys to make a prototype video? Like to say, this is what this could look like? Because I mean, I'll be fully honest with you guys, you won't be able to finish a fully fleshed out website.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's
right. I feel like that's a lot of work, but you can create a prototype that could show off what your vision is for whatever this thing is.
Yeah, and I think that's what we want to do. I just think since we have such little time, it would be a lot easier to do like a written thing with comparisons and statistics. And I don't think that's going to be like difficult to digest or like lower quality if we do it right. It's so
Yeah.
I'm curious, if we take a step back, what is your sense of what the problem is that you're trying to solve right now?
There isn't an easily digestible way for them to communicate these survival statistics to their patients.
Yeah, and a lot of times they're just not understanding, even if they're trying to break it down. Like it's just they're not doing it correctly, so you have to find a way to give them those statistics in a way that's digestible and easy for them.
A lot of the people in those, like when they're giving them the diagnosis, like they're very high emotions and it makes it harder to process the information that they're getting at the time they're receiving it.
It's kind of like
And if you have like one website instead of 50 billion papers and a giant binder that you can look through when you get home, I feel like that might be a bit easier and more approachable. Because like,
they're already
we all
going
saw
on
that
Google.
giant binder. We all saw it.
They're already going on Google instead of looking at the binder.
Yeah.
I mean, so if we can find
So
a
if
way
you could like go on my chart and see a link to this website from your physician that has like all of the information that you need in one nice organized place that's like personal to you.
Have you guys navigated my chart ever?
I have, yeah.
Okay.
I use it frequently.
I would definitely think about the thing that the Cleveland Clinic has already in place and how you want to incorporate it like that idea for sure.
Yeah. Be able to do like an external link in my chart for like that specific thing.
Yeah, so just to kind of make sure that I understand the general direction you guys are going in, I love this idea you guys are talking about metaphors. And it would almost be like a bank of metaphors
Yeah.
that you would create where you'd be like, tell us about your interests. Like maybe it's clicking on something or typing in or whatever.
Fishing metaphor.
But yeah, like I love fishing, I love hiking, I love sports, I love whatever, and then trying to figure out for each specific thing, creating some kind of like detailed metaphor that helps them say, oh, if I go to the river and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I think are any of you in coding or have any of you done any significant amount of coding?
No, I think I know where you're going.
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, I'm in it.
You're
I
in
just
it.
don't know how.
I'm just trying to get a sense
I've
of.
done coding. I haven't taken a class.
I mean, what I'm going with is like, can you
Make a
guys
game.
do this? That's my.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna use a website builder. We're not gonna like type up
I
some
mean,
code.
Sure.
But
I think like we did it once in public arts where we had to make like a website. for
yeah,
our
and
content.
that was Google Sites, which is not always the most
It's
professional
not the
looking.
greatest.
But we could always make a draft with that because that's something that I know how to use really, really well and could probably do in like 5 minutes.
I'm foreseeing a situation where Wix or WordPress or whatever doesn't have the like exact thing
Right.
you want to be able to, like you're talking about creating like a system where there's like a bunch of different potential inputs.
Yeah, and
that
there are
direct
so
you to
many
places.
tools, like website building tools. I'm sure at least some of them have like the things where you can. Actually, I think I've done something like that, but I think it wasn't like.
Yeah, I'm hearing definitely like actual some kind of technical side of trying to figure out some of that's navigate. Would you guys want to have something where you could literally like take your laptop over and give it to Mitchie?
Yeah,
And
or
she
I would
can,
put up a
like,
QR code. And,
put up a QR, and do a little one on the phone. I mean, that would be really incredible.
but it would be like a draft. It would be like pick a couple things.
Right. Because I'm also hearing design, right? I'm hearing that there's going to be a need for you guys to think about how you want to design and put this together, and then of course this kind of information gathering side. Do you guys feel like you have the resources that you would need to be able to accomplish this in 2.5 weeks?
The information
Yeah.
gathering, definitely. We would have to, like, because Google Sites kind of sucks.
It kind of sucks.
Yeah.
I think it's a 10-question limit, but I think this is source correct.
Okay.
You have to pay for it to be more than that.
Depending on the price, that might be something that the school can
Yeah,
cover.
we just need to figure out if this specific one is right for us, and then
Yeah.
talk more about it.
Do some more research about what you would actually want to.
I mean, I was kind of scrolling through Wix a little bit, and it seems nice.
I know a lot of websites use Wix. Obviously, WordPress is really common. It's been around for a while. I would do some research definitely about that you want to do. Think about what you want this to look like at the end. My question for you guys also is there any things that you feel like you need to learn more about in this process? While I'm thinking about how to structure what I do on my side.
Well, I mean, obviously we need to know the specific data for each cancer, but that's pretty easy to find on
I think
PubMed.
if you're thinking about like what kind of like lectures or whatever is best for you to get, it's just better if you learn more about like how cancer works and like what these people are actually going through, because that's again kind of like a user understanding more about our user.
Yeah.
So you guys mentioned when I go more of the science behind the treatment too.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Like I learned a bit about, like last night I went on a bit of a radiation rabbit hole, and I learned like
Careful of that. You gotta wear a lead apron if you're.
I learned like how the units work and like what's a safe amount of radiation to do, and like how doctors have to sort of balance how much radiation is able to like actually make an effect versus how much will cause these like negative effects with radiation poisoning.
Right.
I also learned about a really awful thing that happened with radiation poisoning to this one guy, but I'm not gonna get into it.
There's a lot.
Well, yeah,
Was
because
it
we
the-
have to use more than like a safe dose of radiation for the cancer patient. So it's
Yeah.
not
It's it can get really challenging. Gabe, did you learn about the guy who invented radiation therapy? Was that the person you found out about?
I found out about him, yeah,
Okay.
but there was also like this one.
If he ultimately
Japanese
lost
dude.
half of his face
He
to
did.
cancer. So it's a really challenging thing. We can definitely talk a little bit more about that, and I have some things to give a little history to about the development of radiation treatment. Because as you said, Olive, you need to make it worse. You need to make it unsafe. It's because you're trying to kill cancer.
But only slightly unsafe, because if like you get, because the threshold for like complete unsafety is about like 6,000 to 8,000.
RADs,
RADs, yeah.
RADs.
Like that will hurt you and cause really insane long-term effects.
Yeah.
But the great thing about radiation is that once you're over like the worst symptoms, your body will rebuild itself,
just
which is
done.
why it's perfect for cancer treatment.
Yeah, it's a lot more targeted than chemo, but I can definitely try to make some space for that for sure. I'm just trying to think about how to build those things out. Are there any other questions you guys have for me? It sounds like you've got a really clear direction, but not too clear. Like you're still able to do some research and figure out what's out there. My suggestion would be try to find if other people have done anything like this or what other places besides the Cleveland Clinic are doing right now. But do you guys have any last questions for me about any of this?
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. You are free.
I would love more lectures on how radiation oncology works.
Yes, and I will try to do my best, Gabe, as a not a radiation oncologist. I'll do what I can for sure.